I want to live my own life now, and I want to do it without you. My wife, Claire, didn't just whisper those cold words to me while we were alone together in our quiet bedroom. She didn't wait for a private moment to tell me that her heart had changed and her feelings were gone. Instead, she chose to say them very loudly right across our big, heavy wooden dining room table. It was a typical Friday evening, and her sister, along with two of her closest friends, were sitting just a few feet away, listening to every single word. After she said it, she looked at them and gave a small, confident smile. She added, "I'm just so tired of feeling like I am trapped in this life." The whole room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the thick rug. Everyone stopped eating their dinner and looked straight at me. I could tell exactly what they were thinking in that moment. They were waiting for me to get very upset or start a scene. They expected me to start a big, loud argument or maybe drop to my knees and beg her to stay. They probably thought I would promise to change every little thing about myself just to make her happy again. But I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I stayed very still. I picked up my favorite mug, took a slow, calm sip of my warm coffee, and simply nodded my head. I looked her right in the eyes and said, "Go ahead." The silence in the room became even deeper. Claire had a little smirk on her face, like she had just won a big prize in a game. She was absolutely so sure that she had finally taken control of the situation and won. Then very calmly, I finished what I was saying, but I made sure to add one very important part. "But you won't be doing it in my house." Just like that, her smile vanished. It was gone in an instant. You see, there was something very important that Claire had completely forgotten about. The beautiful home we were sitting in wasn't actually something we had bought together as a couple. It was a very special gift that my grandfather had given to me many years ago. He gave it to me long before I ever even met Claire. She thought she was just walking away from a husband she didn't want anymore. She had no idea that she was actually about to walk away from the comfortable, safe life she had been living for a long time. She had started to take everything for granted. By the time the sun went down 3 weeks later, she would be standing on the sidewalk outside that same front door with nowhere left to go. My name is Ethan. For 11 long years, I truly believed in my heart that my marriage to Claire was built on a foundation of real, honest love. When we first met, she was such a wonderful person. She was truly kind. She had big dreams, and she always cheered me on. We started our life together with almost nothing in our pockets. We worked so hard, side by side, to build a life that felt happy and safe for both of us. Those were some of the best days, even when we were tired from working long hours. Over time, my construction business started to do really well. It grew from just a small, humble crew of local workers into a very successful company. As the business grew, our lives changed. We bought much nicer furniture. We went on beautiful vacations to faraway places, and we stopped having to worry about how much things cost. But as the money came in, I noticed that Claire was changing too. She wasn't the same woman I married. She became very focused on how things looked to other people. She wanted to have friends who had a lot of money, and she spent a lot of time showing off her life on social media. Our home, which used to be a place of love, started to feel like just a place for her to change her clothes before going to the next fancy dinner party. The simple words, "Thank you," slowly stopped being said in our house. Eventually, the feeling of us in our relationship started to fade away. Everything became about what she wanted and what she needed. One Friday evening, Claire decided to have a few of her friends over for a nice dinner at our place. Right in the middle of the meal, she put her fork down and looked right at me. She had a very serious look on her face. "I have made a big decision," she told the whole room. I didn't get upset or loud. I just nodded my head and asked her what it was. I was tired of the games and the coldness between us. She gave a small, cold smile. "I want to live for myself without you," she said. Her friends looked at each other, feeling very nervous, but Claire looked like she was very proud of herself. She said she had given up too many years of her life and that she deserved to be free. When I told her, "Go ahead," she actually laughed a little bit. She said, "I knew you would understand." She thought I was being weak. That is when I looked around the room and said the words that changed everything, "But not in my house." The laughing stopped right then. Claire looked confused and asked me what I meant. I explained the whole situation as simply as I could. The house had always belonged to me alone. It was legally put into my name long before we ever got married. She just sat there, waiting for someone to tell her I was making a joke. But nobody said a word because they knew I was telling the truth. The very next morning, I went to talk to my lawyer. Everything was very clear and easy to understand. Because the house was mine before we got married, and because we had signed a special paper, a prenuptial agreement, before our wedding day, there was no doubt about who owned the home. Claire tried to tell me she would never leave. She truly thought if she stayed long enough, I would give up and let her have her way like I always used to, instead of staying and fighting. I found a quiet place to stay for a little while, so the legal work could happen peacefully. A few weeks later, the court said exactly what my lawyer knew they would say. Claire was given a set amount of time to pack up her things and move out. On the day she finally left, she kept crying and saying, "This isn't fair." I looked at her and said, "It wasn't fair to treat our marriage like it was something you could just throw away, either." In less than a month, Claire moved into a very expensive apartment in the city. She could barely afford the rent, but she wanted to look successful to everyone online. She posted many photos of parties on rooftops and dinners at pricey restaurants. To anyone looking at her phone screen, she looked like she was having the time of her life. She wanted everyone to be jealous of her new freedom. But pictures don't pay for electricity or food. Many of the friends who told her to leave me started to disappear when she couldn't pay for their expensive dinners anymore. The exciting life she dreamed became very, very quiet. While she was struggling, I spent my time working and talking with my parents again. I started doing hobbies that I had forgotten about years ago. For the first time in 10 years, my house felt like a peaceful place where I could breathe and be myself. About a year later, I ran into Claire at a small bookstore in town. She looked tired, but she didn't look mean anymore. She looked like she was finally being honest with herself. We talked for a few minutes, and then she said something I didn't expect. "I thought being free meant getting away from you," she told me. I noticed she wasn't wearing any expensive jewelry anymore. I smiled a little and asked, "And what did you find out?" She looked down at the floor and whispered, "It turns out I was actually trying to run away from myself." For the first time in a long time, there was no anger between us. We didn't say mean things or blame each other. We just accepted what had happened. She told me she was sorry for how she ended things. I told her I forgave her, but I knew in my heart that we could never be together again. Before we left, she asked, "Do you ever miss what we had?" I thought about it for a long time. "I miss the people we were when we first started," I said. She nodded and said she did too. We walked out of the store and went our separate ways. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about learning to respect yourself enough to let go of someone who isn't holding on to you anymore. That day, I didn't feel like I had lost a wife. I felt like I had finally found my way back home to myself. Thank you for listening to this story. We hope it reminds you to be kind to yourself and to the people you love.